Andrew, first of all, what did Mad Men and that Don Draper character do for your industry?
It got us talked about. It got the industry talked about, not necessarily positively, but it got the industry talked about, and that's usually a good thing.
But I think one thing, it made us really understand the creativity behind it, how emotion ties so much into what they do and essentially what you do.
Yeah, emotion is what drives behavior. And we've just done quite a lot of work on this because there was a guy called Peter Field who did a survey, or did a big study in the UK on brands that had won effectiveness awards. So we knew they'd worked, and then looked to see if they'd also won creative awards, to see if there was a correlation between the two, and there was. But while he was doing that, he also noticed that brands that had used emotional advertising tended to have disproportionately high effects, whether you look at the impact on the profit, the business, or the brand metrics.
And emotional, it's super sexy, it's totally upsetting, because that's kind of what we know Don Draper for, really pushing that envelope.
Right, and when you dig into the science of it, right at the heart of it, it's understanding that whilst we would like to think we all behave like Spock, we're actually a lot more like Homer Simpson. Our behaviors are driven much more by primitive urges and instincts than they are by thinking things through rationally. And a lot of work has been done on this, and there are two molecules that get stimulated by different experiences that really matter. One is dopamine, which is the molecule of confidence, of lust, the thrills and spills. You get buckets of it if you take cocaine. You get little squirts of it if you get 3 fruits lined up in a game of Candy Crush. That's a highly, highly addictive molecule. If you can stimulate the production of that and attach that feeling to a brand, that will in turn drive behavior. And the other one is a molecule called oxytocin, not to be confused with oxycontin.
Also highly addictive.
Equally addictive. And that's the molecule of love, of belonging, of security, of trust. And again, if you can stimulate the production of that molecule, attach it to a particular brand, then the next time the consumer sees that brand, it triggers retrieval of that wonderful feeling, and they act, behave.
Advertising has, by this point, become this scientific on a regular basis. How often do you take an ad and study human response to that ad at that deeper level, where you're looking at the production of sort of naturally produced human content?
Yeah, so usually you're testing ads before you make them. So you can't actually do this test. You can't test for oxytocin and dopamine without a finished piece of work. So what we did was we had this as a hypothesis. We thought we'd test it and prove it. And we took 5 brands, and we took for each brand 2 pieces of work, one which we knew had worked reasonably well, one which we knew had worked exceptionally well. And then we had a lab at USC test respondents for their production of oxytocin and dopamine while they viewed each of these pieces of work. And in every single case, the production of oxytocin and dopamine accurately predicted the sales outcome from those pieces of work.
Why is your new Snickers campaign doing so well?
Because that produces a lot of dopamine.
Why?
Because it's got lots of twists and turns and thrills. So
walk us through the campaign.
So the campaign is a combination of what I'd call high impact, high reach events, like running a commercial in the Super Bowl with where we take the mickey out of the Brady Bunch with Steve Buscemi and Danny Trejo. It has a central idea, you're not you when you're hungry, that is a really powerful plot. So we combine those big moments where you get all of the surprises as you work through the 30-second commercial with atomized storytelling in all of the places that consumers spend the rest of their time. You recreate that experience, you're not you when you're hungry, all through consumers' lives, all their touch points. For example, on Google search, we found out that, and you all know this, when you type in words, you often misspell them.
Yes.
Busyness or... So we found out what the 10,000 most frequently misspelled words are, and then the 250,000 versions of those misspelled words. And then we paid to buy the misspelled words. Of course, you don't have to pay very much because nobody wants to pay to buy misspelt words. And then when
True.
and then when people typed in a misspelt word, up would come a thing that says, you can't spell right when you're hungry, you're not you, grab a Snickers.
How cool is that?
That is search engine optimization, that's for sure.
Yeah. We did a fabulous thing on Tinder, which is... I'm sure you don't know what Tinder is.
Well, familiar with Tinder, yeah.
So people make bad choices, lots of bad choices on Tinder. So we created profiles of characters that had little things wrong with them. And if you swiped right on Tinder for one of these bad profiles, up would pop a message that said, you make
3 eyeballs and 11 fingers. Nobody lists that on Tinder. Andrew, amazing.